All right. Casey, what's your answer here? Why is your answer 10,000? That's correct. Bank number one gets what's due to them, right? Bank number one gets their 150. But then bank number two gets the leftovers. How much left over there, Casey? 10,000. That's it. That's all he gets. Okay.
Thinking about the case last class,
Mhm.
did the homeowners get their equity in the property back when they foreclosed?
That's a good question. Yeah, this question is sort of simplified. It's assuming there's no equity,
Oh,
right? It's assuming that everything that's due is what's due to the bank. But you're right, right? In theory, at least, the buyers put down something, right? But the buyers will not get their equity back unless the purchase price is reached, right? The banks will always come first. The buyers will not get anything here, right? Kirk, and then Jose.
Is the difference between a short sale and a foreclosure sale the opportunity to actually realize some equity in a short sale?
I'm not sure what you mean by short sale. Can I just tell everyone?
Well, short sale is typically when a buyer or a lender has been notified that they're in arrears to the mortgage company, and then they have the opportunity before the foreclosure proceedings begin, essentially liquidate the house
On their own.
Yeah.
Maybe. Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, Jose?
Going by the facts, does it matter that they didn't default on the second loan? Like,
That's a good question. It doesn't, because once there's a foreclosure, all the mortgages get wiped out, right? They all get wiped out. And whoever buys Blackacre at the foreclosure sale will take a fee simple. Now, question 7C. This will be for us. Nick, I'll just ask you. Let's say the foreclosure sale brings in only $50,000. What remedy can the bank seek? What is a deficiency judgment?
Price of the real property sold foreclosure sale under less than the unpaid balance of the investment secured by the real property.
Okay, very good. Bank number one, and frankly, bank number two, can go after the borrower for a deficiency judgment, which would probably be in this case $100,000 from bank number one and the full 30 from bank number two. Now, it's known that if a person just defaulted on their mortgage, they're probably not going to be able to pay off a $100,000 debt. But they might put in a judgment against them, which can be collected in the future. Maybe they acquire property at some point in the future. Maybe they fall into an inheritance. Maybe they have wage garnishments or different remedies that creditors can use. Okay. All right, questions? Okay, Craig.
So if that's the case, as the borrower filed for bankruptcy, then there's nothing for the bank to go after. Is that correct?
Say that again?
So in that case, if I'm the borrower and I default on my loan, I file for bankruptcy.
Correct.
So that solves that problem. Is that correct?
Bankruptcy doesn't actually solve a problem. I wouldn't quite.
It creates a problem, and they just borrow.
Right. Bankruptcy might get you out of the current jam, but the consequence of your credit's going to be garbage for a very long time. So it might get you out of the current jam. And let me actually answer this question with regard to the priority. Well, let's say you declare bankruptcy and you have some assets, right? You have something. Every last penny you get is going to be chopped up by your various creditors and they're going to be fighting over your money. So maybe you don't have a house, maybe you have a summer home, maybe you have something else. That becomes all open to be taken by your creditors. Yeah, I have to get another one of these mics. I've had this one for just about a year. And I think that the battery it gets shot after like one class. And I always remember to charge. It used to be good for like 3 or 4 classes, but I think the battery just doesn't last. So it's a great mic. Razer, the gaming brand, they make this mic. It's an excellent mic. But I think I'll just get a new one. Alex.
In real life, do properties have more than 2 mortgages? Because isn't mezzanine debt usually just like another type of
What were mezzanine? I'm not sure.
Usually they don't have the same type of recourse as like the primary, like the real mortgage. Like it's a debt with a secondary kind of.
Right, it's not secured. I think that's the
Yeah.
word I would use. Right, if it's not secured, they may never get their money back.
But if it's not secured, is it like the technical definition of the mortgage?
A mortgage will be secured, even if it's a secondary mortgage. Okay, everyone with me? Good. All right, let's move on. All right, so again, we are now almost an hour, 45 minutes, and we haven't done any cases yet. So just the longer the review takes us, the more, the time, just so you know. All right, so we have 2 cases today. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not with the cases yet. We have to do the recording system. Okay. The basis of everything we do in property is record. Right? When you want to buy Blackacre, the most important question you have to ask yourself is, does the seller actually own Blackacre? And if you don't know, or you're not sure, run away. Don't buy it. How do we determine if the person actually owns Blackacre? We use the system known as recording, right? In theory, at least, when a deed is recorded, it shares information with the world, right? Who owns the property today? Who owned it yesterday? Who owned it 10 years ago? The purpose of doing a title search is to walk through, step by step, all of the various owners of Blackacre. All right. There are 2 general types of recording systems. The first one is very rare, so you can forget I even said it, but it's easier. It's called a track index. So imagine you have a huge grid. Remember the game Battleship, right? Like B-10, right? You put a huge grid over Houston. You give every single plot a unique number. So, Blackacre is number 1525. And then you can track at every point in time any transactions associated with Blackacre. Wouldn't it be easy to just associate issues of property with the actual property itself? Yes. But we do not have that sort of system. Instead, we have a recording system based on the grantor-grantee index. The grantor-grantee index lists, or at least supposed to list, all the various transactions that occur between the buyers and the sellers over the years. Okay? There are these 2 books, and now they're mostly digital, but at least in the olden days, there were 2 books. There was a grantee index and a grantor index. Brian, let me ask you a question, please. If I'm buying Blackacre from you, and let's say I don't trust you, right? Where would I start my search? Which book do I use? Yeah, which book? Not the good book. Which book are we using? Yeah, you're right about it.
Index,
Which index?
the tracked index,
No. That's why I said it doesn't exist anywhere. Try again.
the other one.
Which is the other one? This isn't funny.
The grantor grantee index.
Which one? There are 2. Just give me 2 names. Which index do I use if I'm buying Blackacre from you?
I didn't know that they were broke down.
Then you didn't do the reading. It was a huge chunk of the reading. I'll come back to you. Son, which book to use? Which book to start with?
So I would say the grantors, because it's indexed alphabetically and.
If I'm buying a property from you,
Okay.
right? You're the present owner.
Yep.
and look for your name in the grantor index. Did I find it? No. No, it wasn't. Brian, I'll try again.
There's a grantee index. Yeah,
Why, Brian? Why the grantee index?
because that has all the names of
What's the only name I know? If I'm buying Blackacre from you, what's the only name I know?
my name.
Where would I find that? Where would I find that? Where would I find your name?
You would find mine in
Brian, what's the difference between a grantor and a grantee?
the grantor is, the person that's giving the property, and the grantee is receiving.
Okay.
So
So if I'm buying Blackacre from you, where do I look for your name?
the grantee index, because
Why?
I received it
When did you receive it?
whenever I bought it.
Correct. The present day seller was at some point the buyer. Right? Whoever is selling the property today was at some point in the past the buyer. You always begin your search in the grantee index because the only name that you know is the name of your seller. And at some point you want to find out, how did the current seller come to own Blackacre? Right? You always begin your search in your grantee index. You search your grantee index back in time. And then when you get to the end, you go forward in the other book. Yes, there are two of them. The grantor index. Okay. So Jason, let's walk through this. It's on page, what was it? 678, please. Where it says, assume that a man named Dubek. You see that? All right, Jason, so let's walk through this, right? You're buying Blackacre. Congratulations. From a guy named Dubek. That's all you know. You know anything else? This guy's name is Dubek. What do? What's your process of checking this out?
You would go to grantee index.
You go to the index. Okay. What do you look for? You go to the grantee index. What are you looking for? You're buying a house from Dubek. What are you searching for?
You're searching for, what's the defects?
No. What are you trying to find? What's the purpose of this entire exercise? What are you trying to find?
All the interests.
You're buying the house from Dubek. What are you trying to find?
Oh,
Did you do the reading?
I did, but I'm trying to.
It's literally, it's in the paragraph. This is not something. What do you?
Trying to find a deed to different, that's Cotter in 1997.
You don't know about Cotter yet. My question is the first question, okay? You're buying a house from Dubek. What are you trying to find? What are you looking for?
How Dubek received title.
Good. Thank you. What you're looking for is how the present day owner Dubek got it. Right? The way you find that is by checking every year of Dubek. You check 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020, and so on. You go year by year, searching every single record for the name of Dubek. And Talia, what do you eventually find? What do you eventually find? You find who sold it to Dubek. Okay, good. What do you find? Well, who sold it to Dubek?
Cotter.
Cotter. Okay, so once you get Cotter's name, then what do you start searching for?
You look for who sold it to Cotter.
You go back. You look back. Another show. Welcome back, Cotter. Anyway. No. Oh, come back. It's a good show. Gabe Kaplan. It was actually from the LaGuardia High School. No, what was
was it, which high school my mom went there? I can't blank on it anyway. I'm bored. You start searching back in time. You just look for Cotter. Then you go 1972, 73, 74, 75, right? You keep going back in time until you find Giselle. Well, before you get to the original order, we have one more pit stop.
Oh,
Where did Cotter get it from? Barker, right? Barker. Okay, now we look back in time. Barker. Emma, eventually, when did we stop? Oliver. Oh, like original. Oh, right. Why do we stop at 1900? And why do we stop there? We have to keep going.
Because he was the original owner to the first deed out.
I mean, so let's just I'll just put you're correct, but the land was probably inhabited before 1900. We just don't know who that person is. 100 years is a good round number. Okay, Emma. After we get back to Oliver in 1900, then what do we do?
You look at the guarantor index.
Not guarantor, so close. You're not guarantor index.
The guarantee index.
Not, you're adding two letters.
The grant.
Grantor index.
Yeah.
You said guarantor. I know, I knew exactly. Yeah, you add like two extra letters.
Yes.
The rule in Jeopardy is you change the pronunciation of the word, it's not separate, right? So, no, that's a rule in Jeopardy. It's true. Right, so if you had, when you're done with the grantee index, you switch books and you go to the grantor index, right? I think everyone happy? So after you switch to the grantor index, what do you do? What's the next step?
Go and look and see who the owner is.
Correct. Who did Oliver sell it to?
Anderson,
Anderson. And what year?
1915.
Good. Yes, sir. All right. And then Alex, what do you do after that? You see Oliver sold to Anderson 1915. What happens next? Next is a little quirky.
Anderson. You find a deed from Anderson to Barker.
Okay, so the deed was signed in 34, but recorded in 39. What's the significance of that, Alex? Why is that significant? Why is that a problem?
There's years that are not accounted for.
What could have happened during those years?
He could have sold it or gave it away.
Correct. You have a problem. There's a 5-year gap, right? There's a 5-year gap between when the deed was signed and when it was recorded. And during the time, we don't know what could have happened. Maybe a mortgage was put in the land, right? Maybe it was sold. You see this, you give red flags, right? Something could have happened. But eventually in 39, it was recorded. And Jacob, what happens next?
Then it's Barker owns it and conveys it to Cotter in 72.
40-something years later, right? 38 years later. And eventually Cotter gives it to Dubeck in 77. I'm sorry, in 97. Okay? This is a pattern. If you didn't get this, go back and re-listen to it. Actually, the Zoom works with Zoom is smarter. When my microphone battery died, Zoom switches to my computer microphone. YouTube is stupid. When my mic battery dies, it just goes on mute. So that's why I feel bad. All right, but I'm going to order a new mic. It'll be here tomorrow. Anyway, so with the indexes, you always start with the grantee index, work your way back to the beginning, find out as far as you want to go, then you work forward with the grantor index. Now, this little glitch over here meant there was 5 years of unrecorded deed. I promise you on the exam, stuff will happen those 5 years, right? There'll be many gaps. There'll be deeds that are not recorded. There'll be deeds that are recorded later, never at all. And during the gaps, stuff will happen. So just be very attentive. And I said this before, it's very easy to throw an adverse possession question into this because if there's a 30-year gap where a deed's not recorded, at some point you might get it through adverse possession. So always be attentive how I can merge chain of title questions with adverse possession questions. Brian?
What's the, when you're going back, you're looking to go back, why do you stop at a certain point?
Yeah, there's not a good answer. In fact, I think 100 years is probably not enough in my estimation. I'll go back even further. If you go to page 681, Brian, you can read this one. Where's this gentleman? It's on page 681. You can read this one. It's in your book also. It's hard to read.
I can see. I'm in receipt of your letter of the 5th of this month requiring as to the state of the title prior to the year 1830. Please be advised that in the year 1803, the United States of America acquired the territory of Louisiana from the Republic of France by purchase. The Republic of France previously acquired the title from the Spanish crown by conquest. Spain acquired title by virtue of discoveries of one Christopher Columbus,
Genoa, it's in Italy.
a sailor who had been duly authorized to embark upon his voyage of discovery by Isabella, Queen of Spain. Before granting such authority, Isabella, pious and cautious woman, obtained the distinction of His Holiness to the Pope. The Pope is the vicar on earth of Jesus Christ, the only Son of our parent, of God. God made Louisiana.
Are you from Louisiana, Nick?
Exactly.
Exactly right?
That's exactly what I
Right, so this is obviously meant to be a satire, and of course, it's missing native people who happened to live here before Columbus, but we'll that's the nature into the title search. What we know is it's very hard to track this your property. 1900 probably is not enough. This is probably just some arbitrary point the book used, but in reality, if you're doing expensive oil and gas leases, you're going back to patent, you're going back to the Louisiana Purchase, right? I had a student here some years ago, I'm not joking. His family had property that stretched to the Queen of Spain. It was actually a grant from Spain in Texas. I don't know what year it was from, but it's like hundreds of years. So you have to go all the way back. Yes, Tomer.
What happens if you go back in the grantee index and forward the grantor and something doesn't tie?
That's a good exam question, isn't it?
Okay.
No, it's true, and it's not necessarily because of fraud. It might be because of negligence, right? Maybe someone wrote the wrong digit down the year, right? Or like the clerk just screwed up and put it in the wrong book.
Yeah, I'll ask that in an exam. You have to sort of make out your best you can do it. But if you think about it, this was a perfect example of average possession, right? If there was something that was not properly recorded 50 years ago, and people living there successfully for year after year, it's pretty good average possession. If it's a good faith stand, if it's hostile, then it's not. So you have to keep in mind the state of mind. It was my back. I'm sorry. Sorry for my back too. All right. Everyone get the chain of title. Seriously, I know you weren't all well prepared on this. Maybe you don't read the notes. You have to read the notes, right? You're kind of laughing, Brian. The first time you read this one just now. Yeah. I mean, come on. It's obvious, right? He's not alone. A lot of you are laughing also. If you saw it before, you wouldn't be laughing as hard. It's funny, but you have to read this, right? The notes are very important in this class. I can't assume you read it, which makes my job more difficult. What? Oh, okay.
And I know you read it.
Did I? I've read this many times. I actually use this in Property 1 when I talk about the discovery by conquest, discovery doctrine and conquest doctrine. I think we studied it last semester. All right. Questions so far?
So if you do this,
You got to just raise your hand. Just let me acknowledge. Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Good. Yeah, Darren.
So if say you trace the grantee index back, everything looks okay. You go to the grantor index, and you find, like in this example, the discrepancy of 5 years, and who knows what happened.
Right.
I mean, do you just cut and run at that point?
Yeah, that'd be a smart thing to do. I mean, yes, no. If you're prudent, you cut and run. But also, you might say any average possession claim is 90 years old at this point. All right, you probably have average possession at some point. But yeah, if this is like an oil and gas issue, something very profitable, yeah, you run. You don't take this because some guy can show us, hey there, that's my interest. All right.
I guess in that circumstance, is there would you seek to quiet title then, or like how would you approach it?
You could, but again, it's easier to just not buy it. You only do that if you bought it and get in trouble. All right, who's next? Don't worry about it. Jacob, facts, please, in Luthi v. Evans, please.
So the original owner of 8 oil and gas leases in this county in Kansas intended to convey, or seemingly meant to convey in the assignment, 7 out of 8 of those to company tours, as it's noted in the case. But in the second half of the assignment, he has what's called a Mother Hubbard clause.
Yeah. Let's just put that on the board here. Just read this for us, please, Jacob.
all interests of whatsoever nature in all working interests and overriding royalty interests in all oil and gas leases in Coffee County, Kansas, owned by them, whether or not the same are specifically enumerated above.
Okay, what does that mean?
So she intended to convey, or at least that clause conveys everything that she has there.
Okay, very good.
So all 8 of 8.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we have this conveyance, right? We have this conveyance. Ms. Grace Owens said, all interests of whatsoever nature and all working interests and overriding royalty interests in all oil and gas leases in Coffee County. Jason, why do you think she would use this sort of language? Why do you think anyone would use this sort of language?
If they were going to die, they didn't have time to figure it all out.
That's actually very creative, right? That's actually, I think, a good answer. If you're in your deathbed and you want to create a quick conveyance to just cash out, and you don't have time to go through all of your various interests, you just include this clause. Jason, is this clause effective between Ms. Owens and the tourist company?
Yes.
Yes. You can use the Mother Hubbard clause as between the two parties, right?
Can you repeat that last part? I'm so sorry.
Sure. As I have to keep going here because the mic will pick it up otherwise. That wireless mic liberates me. It's freezing. I used to actually carry around, you'll watch old videos, a microphone attached to my phone and carry around like this entire class. So my phone battery would be dead also after every class. The Mother Hubbard clause is valid as between Owens and Torres. They can use this language to convey all of their interests. The problem only arises between a subsequent buyer, which is the rub of this case, right? Craig, why are these Mother Hubbard clauses problematic for a subsequent buyer?
Lack of specificity.
Good. What do you mean lack of specificity?
It doesn't, the Mother Hubbard clause doesn't contain enough language to determine who the subsequent buyer would be, who the conveyance would be.
Who the conveyance would be. What is it not conveying enough information about?
The next owner or the next.
Well, that's conveying information to whom. I'm asking, what does it not convey, the Mother Hubbard clause?
The property being conveyed.
Correct. It doesn't put a subsequent buyer on notice about what land is actually being conveyed by the Mother Hubbard clause. Right? Why is it called Mother Hubbard? Remember the old nursery rhyme? Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard, so it was bare, and gave the dog a bone. Remember that nursery rhyme? Maybe? No? All right. But it refers to giving everything you got. These clauses are problematic because if I am a subsequent buyer and I am searching for interest on, let's say, the Kufel lease, this clause would not trigger any information. Wait a minute, Jose. What if I search for Miss Grace Owens in the grantee index or the grantor index? Would I find this deed recorded?
Yes.
You would. And if you're a lawyer and you do a title search for Miss Grace Owens and you find this deed floating around from the Hubbard clause, what should you do?
Figure out what else she owns that wasn't specified.
Yeah. And what if you find that she has this Kufel lease, which is located in this county, and she's trying to sell it to you? What would you determine?
I wouldn't buy it.
Why would you not buy it?
Somebody else.
Already owns it.
Tourist.
Good. Right. So here's the problem. This is why actually I don't think I agree with this case. Timer.
So you said that they looked into the bank index, they would find Ms. Owens.
They would find this Mother Hubbard clause, wouldn't they?
But what about all the other people that was on this with her? Would they have to look up Owens and Banneker?
Yeah, they'd have to go through the chain of title, but they eventually get back to Ms. Owens, right? Right? Because why? Ms. Owens sold the Kufel lease to another party later, right? So they know her name. They'll find her name. And if they search for her name, they'll find this. So my question is, why on earth do they buy it anyway? Right? Why would you buy the Kufel lease from Miss Owens if you know that this other deed's floating around with Torres?
Why would you do it? It's a risk, right? Maybe you're hoping that tours wouldn't enforce their interest. You don't know. So what did the Kansas Supreme Court hold here? Was the Mother Hubbard clause sufficient to provide notice to a subsequent buyer?
No.
Why not?
It lacks specificity, it's too broad, and it's referring to the wrong county.
What is constructive notice, Zach?
Constructive notice requires that it be recorded to such an extent that a subsequent party would.
Right.
find-
Actual notice would be there's a clear deed saying I convey the Kufel lease to whoever, right? That's actual notice. But this language here might be constructive notice. It puts the seller, it puts a subsequent buyer on notice that something's up. Okay? But the court here holds that a subsequent buyer will not be put on notice by this language. Now, I don't agree with this. And in fact, in Texas, this is not the rule. In your notes, there's a case, where is it? It's called Texas Consolidated Oils versus Bartels. It's in one of the notes after your decision. And in Texas, the Mother Hubbard clauses are effective. And I get why the court would say they're not. It's more work for the buyer. But if you come across one of these clauses, you should run, or at least determine which leases are covered. Or maybe what Taurus could have done was actually after the initial transaction was made. Okay. Okay. After the initial transaction was made, Taurus could have said, okay, let's write down in a recorded entry what actually is covered by it. What are all these other royalty interests in Coffee County? But anyway. Yes, AJ. It's not like a gift in anticipation of death, the gift of mortis, but that's often how they're done. I think either would just be lazy or they just didn't want to do the extra hard work. Because Mrs. Owens was like, oh, I have an idea. I'm going to sell everything I got to this new company that came in, and I don't even know what I have of so much stuff. But there was then, I think, a duty of due diligence to actually list all the properties at later points. They have name counts.
So that one, it doesn't have anything to do with the holographic.
Oh, you're thinking of a holographic will? No, she wasn't dying here. At least she was. It's not in the facts, right? If a person is dying, it is actually very effective, right? But there was no evidence that she was on her deathbed. Right. So at least in Kansas, the Mother Hubbard clauses are not enforceable as between subsequent parties. It was enough to convey the interest from Owens to Torres, but it was not enough to provide notice to subsequent buyers. Casey.
So how does this work with a company versus a normal person? Is there a way to get out of that? Because that person has to get it's like smart enough to know what they were signing?
Are you saying it might be duress or fraud or misleading? What's your concern?
Yeah, like so maybe she didn't know she was getting had.
Oh.
All her interests, and maybe she could work it back saying that she wasn't sophisticated enough to sign something like when you do like a payday loan.
Oh, I see. So you think the first company Torres was trying to cheat her, perhaps, and said, "Give me everything you got."
Yeah, because I think like you read this from someone who doesn't read all interests or whatsoever, and everything like inside these four of this paper, these four corners of the paper, which is why she subsequently sold.
I mean, it says whether or not they are enumerated above. So I guess if you don't know what enumerated means, I suppose. I don't know. You guys were not lawyers a year ago. Does this language? You think, Casey, if you read this one last year, if you were a lawyer, that you might be had by this one? It seems pretty, not a year ago. It's not misleading language. I don't think you're fraud of any sort.
Yeah, I would know overriding royalties. Some of that I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Also, Miss Owens may be more sophisticated than giving her credit for. She may have been I think she was actually a broker. She may have been trying to add verse, right? I think she actually was trying to scam the other people. She's trying to sell the same lot to two different people, so I think she was actually at fault. I don't know. Yes, ma'am.
So I really think it's just stock language that they've been using.
Okay.
Just someone, I don't think it's fraud, I just think someone just wasn't paying attention. This is just, standard language in a contract.
Okay. Mike?
If you have tours, is there anything you can do to go back and?
I mean, at this
make
point, it's kind of
better
late, but
before-
somebody at this point, in my earlier class, Tor should have, at some point after this conveyance was made, list all the properties that Mrs. Mrs. Owens owns, and actually have that recorded, just so there'll be a clear record.
So they can do that.
Yeah, if you file a notice, an addendum, right? There are different ways you can style it. All right, Giselle.
So you said in Texas that the clause would be effective.
It would be effective for self-compliers, I think, so yes.
So in this first, it's like their part in like making sure everything was clean on their end before they took possession, right? Would they still lose like in Texas?
Yeah, if Burris came across this provision and still bought it anyway, that's on them. And then the reason why this clause exists is to put people on notice, and in Texas, it's sufficient notice. What else?
Just
Yeah,
like, for exam, how you award if this comes up, would you say the Mother Hubbard clause, like, can, like, majority or this, like, minority, like, how would you?
Someone asked me earlier, I actually don't know, at least in Texas, fourth one Kansas, it's not, I've not done a full survey.
Okay.
I really don't know. Okay. Anything else on Luthi? All right, let's go to the next case, Oregon's Byers. Where did I finish off? She next? All right, my friend. Give me the facts, please.
Byers was unaware of Ford's lien on Elliott's property because the spelling of Elliott was like 3 different ways, and they searched on one spelling.
Right.
And I think the question was whether or not they can use a sound X on just Elliott and it still count.
Okay.
I think they said, no, you can't, you have to, because if it's something that's material to the title, which is a name, then you have to be exact.
All right, very good. Thanks, Chi. So here we have a screw up, right? Dominic, who screwed up here? Who made the mistake?
The attorney.
The lawyer. So Orr got a judgment, right? $50,000. Right? What does that mean to have a judgment for $50,000? What does that mean?
Judgment from the lawyer.
We don't even know, but some debt, right? Where Elliott owed Orr 50 grand. What did the lawyer do then, Dominic? What did the lawyer do?
Misspelled his name.
Where? Where did he misspell it?
Was it on the written judgment?
Okay, that's correct. So he misspelled the name of the judgment, and then what happened?
Elliott obtained title to that
Let me
property.
jump ahead. Aaron, what happened after they misspelled the name of the judgment? What's the important part? What's the question asked? It's like now.
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
What happened after the lawyer misspelled the name of the judgment?
It was recorded.
What was recorded?
The judgment was recorded.
Okay, what other document might have been recorded? We asked about this earlier. Having the
A
judgment.
lien, like a lien,
On what?
on buyer's property.
Did the buyer the property at that point?
Sorry, the lien was on Elliott's property.
Did Elliott have property yet?
No.
No. So who was the lien put on? Or what was who or what was the lien put on?
William Elliott with 1 L and 1 T.
Well, you're giving the spelling. Okay. Let me just, we're a little bit short in time. What happened is the lawyer put a lien on Elliott, right? You don't have to put a lien on property, put a lien on a person. You know, let's say a person has no property, so put a lien on them. what that means is if they happen to come into money in the future, the creditor will get a cut of that money. Why does that matter? He misspelled the name on the lien. 2 L's, 2 T's, 1 L, 1 T, whatever it is, he misspelled it. By failing to spell it, he did not put other parties on notice that there was an outstanding judgment against him. So Tamara, what happened next? What did Elliot do?
So Elliot was able to, some kind of way, come into some property.
Yeah, he got Blackacre, then what happened?
Then he sold it to Byers.
Yeah, perfect name, Byers, right?
Yeah, he sold it to Byers and he didn't tell him that he had.
No, he did not. Did he? Do you think he gave him the general warranty deed?
No, he did not.
I don't think he did. It's open fraud. Right? You can't do that. If there's a lien on your property, you have to disclose that with the general warranty. If you have a quick claim deed, oh, shut. And then Tamara, to finish up, when the Byers purchased Blackacre, did any of that money go to the to Orr?
No, it went to Elliot.
Elliot pocketed the entire thing. So then the lawyer flips out and he goes to court. He sues everybody. He sues Elliot. He sues the Byers. He sues the bank, everyone. He's trying to get his $50,000. Mason, does he get his $50,000?
No,
Why not?
because he tries to apply this doctrine called item summons.
Adam Sonnes, that's good, correct.
So he's basically saying that even though Elliot's name was inaccurately written, you could kind of still presume the identity through the name sounding similar.
Correct, very good. And let's just pause for a second, right? Mike, who screwed up here? Who screwed up?
I guess it would be, not Elliot. 'Cause I guess.
Who made the mistakes
He
here?
got over, I would say Orr did.
Did Orr do it himself?
Well, Orr's attorney, I guess. Whoever was doing the,
Mike, let me ask you a question. Let's say in a couple of years you're in practice and you get a judgment and you misspell a guy's name on the judgment and you misspell it on the lien. What is your client going to do to you?
yeah, no, that's a good point. I guess whoever made the misspelling,
What's your client going to do to you if you make that sort of error on his judgment?
they probably sue me for malpractice.
Malpractice. Never forget that one, my friend. Malpractice. So what happened here, Mike? Did Orr sue for malpractice?
Well, Orr did not.
What did Orr do? They actually to be kind of creative.
He sued and he said that essentially the title company did not perform enough diligence.
No.
No?
No. What did Orr do? Is Orr still in this case? Is Orr still in the case?
As of 1981, he was. What time are you talking about?
Latricia, is Orr still in the case? Why not?
Because they didn't put the blame on him.
Who's actually litigating this case? Is it Orr?
No.
Who's litigating the case?
The attorney.
Why? Why had that even happen, Latricia? Her?
Well, I thought they intended to kind of shut Orr down, and so I think that's what.
What do you mean shut Orr down?
Like they were gonna deny it a request.
No.
Early on in the trial.
AJ? Anyone? Jason?
Isn't it because he wants his money back, no? Is that like-
Because of time, the party didn't want to pay him, so they made him do it on his own now.
She?
So he's not liable for malpractice?
What arrangement did Orr and the lawyer reach?
They settled, right?
Okay, tell me more.
Then he settled with the lawyer.
Who's he?
Orr.
Orr, what was the settlement?
No suing for malpractice.
If
he get the lawyer return or pays him money.
Okay, good. The lawyer paid Orr $50,000. In exchange, Orr assigned to the lawyer the cause of action. So the lawyer could keep litigating to seek $50,000 in court at his own expense. Orr was made whole. He got his 50 grand and no malpractice suit, we don't think. Casey?
I can negotiate, $50, but you don't sue for malpractice.
That is a settlement you can do all the time. In other words, the damages that Orr suffered was $50,000. If the settlement pays $50,000, he's made whole. And he can agree, if you make me whole, I will not put a malpractice complaint. Right, there's no obligation to sue for malpractice, you don't have to. And you can dangle that as an incentive. Patricia?
But if they didn't, what if they went against the word and did still file for malpractice or sue for malpractice?
That could be a breach, right? I mean, if you reach a binding settlement, say, if we settle for this amount, you release all claims against me. And then you go to sue, you can sue for breach. Right, you are a release clause, right? You release all claims, to include, I release all malpractice claims against a lawyer. You can do that. So in the end, it's actually the lawyer litigating this case, it's not or. And AJ, does the lawyer win in this case? You didn't read it?
Imagine he did.
No, you didn't read it? Lucky, did the lawyer win this case?
No, Byers won,
Why did Byers win?
because the court said that the sound text items notice even apply, as constructive notice.
Correct. The court said this doctrine, item sonance, we have to search for similar sounding words, does not provide constructive notice, does not apply. This is, I think, the only case in the book where California doesn't do the crazy thing, right? Where California actually sticks with the normal rule. I think it's the only one. Might be two, but this is just about the only one. New Jersey, there are no normal ones. New Jersey, everything's bad. But California, every once in a while gets it right. So here the court says there's no duty. And Casey, why did it not impose the duty to use this item sonance doctrine? What's the problem with that? On whom? Good. It's too burdensome on the buyer through the title searching. Now, just as a realistic matter, if you're a title search company, you're going to search all the variants. Elliot with 1 L's, 2 L's, 2 T's, 1 L, 1, 2 T's, whatever it is, right? You're going to search your maiden names, right? You'll search for foreign, people change your name, their married names. You search for everything. The failure to do that is probably on you, but the court would not impose that obligation as a matter of the title requires. Oh, come on, Tamara, please.
On the judgment, the attorneys spelled it wrong, but recorded in the actual county's recorder's office, they also did the two different names. So what if
Yeah,
the lawyer would've
you
done
can't
it
sue the
right?
government.
Okay, so the lawyer would have done it right and they recorded it wrong. That's just been.
That's another issue, right? This actually adverse possession often comes in as well. If, let's say, the government screws up and they make a mistake, that could result in a huge crisis. You can't sue the government with immunity. Unless there's some sort of gross negligence where they deliberately misrecorded deeds for some malfeasance, you can't sue the government. Sucks, right? What'd you say? That's stupid, right? Government officials have immunity at all levels. Yes, Casey?
So, I think my question is, with this one, do we look at it from what we can put it, well, I guess what I'm asking is, now they have something in the book that's talking about legal care and diligence, so it's kind of changed a little bit from what it was too burdensome on the buyer first.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, this rule is probably right, but as a practical matter, anyone will use due diligence with search for themselves in Elliott. So it's sort of a weird case.
Yeah, so when we refer to this case, and we like figure out how to itemize the different cases or whatever, would you recommend us look into towards reasonable care and diligence versus this case as an example, something for more search?
I'm not really sure. I'm not going to dodge your question. I'm not sure. I think the reasonable care standard works extremely well. I think this case is saying we're not putting extra burdens on the seller. Sorry, I'm not giving you a good answer.
Yeah, because then it tells us that you should.
Yeah, I think maybe the way I can explain it is the court will not impose item sonance as a rule, but you still have a duty to check alternate spelling, which is why I don't know. I mean, forget item sonance. This case just seems like you have the duty to check alternate spelling. I'm not sure if I agree with this one.
But even if you check all these spellings, I mean, it would still really be different. I mean, Elliott with 1 L and 1 T.
Right.
Typically is different from the other L.
Right, and I think you'd have to track to figure out if it's the same person. Right, keep in mind, I mean, go into the Houston phone book, there's no phone book, it was a phone book. Look up how many, Sam Elliott's there on the Houston phone book, right, dozens, right? How do you know which one we're talking about? It's actually a very difficult task with title search. This is last name, not the first name, right? So it's the address, you can figure out the date of birth, you can try and track them. Yeah. That's another man. All right, questions on or people hired? All right, let me wrap up a bit. So from today, please go back and review all 7 of these questions. Understand the difference between the general warranties and quitclaim deeds. Know mortgage or mortgagee. Understand how foreclosures work with priority. These 7 questions took a little bit too long. You should be able to answer these cold. Okay? When we talk about the chain of title, we always start in the grantee index. We start with the name of the person who currently owns the property, and we work our way backwards to patent, which means towards the original owner. Then we switch books. We go to the grantor index to the present. Pay very close attention to any of the gaps. With Luthi, the Mother Hubbard clauses at least don't work in Kansas. They do here in Texas. And for items for Orvie Buyer, the court will not apply items. But to Casey's question, there's usually a duty to check alternate spellings, which is why, again, I think the case is probably right, but not sure. All right, questions? All right, I shall put the exit polling on. Please give me your thoughts on class today, things you weren't sure about. I do read these. And I will see you in class on Thursday.